need a chair with these boots.
Yes.
Make you feel at home.
I'm trying to avoid aggressive behavior. Dr. Vargas, obviously we are thrilled to have you at FABA. I've been coming to FABA since 1998, and I have never seen the response of cell phones and people wanting to take selfies when you've come here. So we are graced by your presence, and we thank you so much for coming here. You have called your father a storybook father, and I quote, "Please tell us some of your favorite stories about him."
Okay. Well, he used to put me to bed. And he would sit on the edge of the bed, and I wanted to keep him there as long as possible. So it didn't take very long before I figured out that the way to keep him there was to ask him a complicated question. And I remember very clearly the one day I came up with a winner. I said, "Daddy, what's beyond space?" That was a very good question. He actually started explaining, and then he jumped up, turned on the light, and went and got scissors and some paper, and I'm wondering what's going on, and he cut a strip of paper, and he twisted it and put it together with Scotch tape, which he also went and got, and made a Mobius strip. And he said, "Okay, now take this pen and start drawing a line on the strip." So I drew a line on the strip, and of course it turns around and ends up that you never have to cross over the edge. Well, it was a very big success for keeping him in my bedroom for a long time. It was not too much of a success in solving my feelings about what's beyond space.
It was written in a book I read about your father that your dad recommended to you as a new mother that you put a music box in your child's presence. Is that true? And did you listen to your father?
I pretty much always listen to my father. I don't remember the music box discussion, but I do remember music boxes, so it could very well be true.
Very nice. Obviously, he was a huge source of influence in your life, but I would assume there's probably other people who helped shape you into the behaviors that you are. Who are some of the other very influential people in you becoming a behavior analyst?
That's a little difficult because I actually only took one course in behavior analysis. Sorry. And that one was from Merle Moskovitz at the University of Pittsburgh. My major was educational research. I was in the education department. So I went over, I thought, well, I really should probably learn a little bit about what my father does. And I already, of course, he taught me how to shape our dog, how to shape my sister sometimes.
Sometimes.
And so I had a good sort of feel for some of it. And so I thought, well, I really should learn this stuff. So I went over and I enrolled. And after the first class, Merle Moskovitz said, "I'd like to speak to two people, me and another friend from education." And he said, "I just want to inform you that education students do not do well in this course." tried to show annoyance and said, "Is that a challenge or a discouragement?" He said, "Well, take it as you like." Well, I didn't drop the course, and the next time I came, to find reinforcement, he turned to me and said, "Wouldn't you agree?" Well, he had called my advisor, and my advisor had said, "I don't think you'll have trouble with her. She's Skinner's daughter." And it's hard for anybody here who knows me to believe it, but I was very shy, and I never went up to him and asked him to please stop. So he kept doing that all semester. And I didn't know. I was learning from him.
You didn't carry that practice on with your students, I hope. In your book, Behavior Analysis for Effective Teaching, you echo something that Jack Michael also wrote and spoke about, which I think is really helpful for all of us, especially for the younger members of our audience. That as an early student, much like Jack Michael, you were not incredibly successful. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how you turned it around, and when did you find your love for learning?
Well, I wanted to be a teacher very early. When I was in 7th grade, I decided I wanted to be a teacher, partly because my elementary school years were a disaster. I came from 2 years in public school in Indiana into a private school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that really thought that in order to show off, they would give, I keep saying they gave, 4th grade reading to their 3rd graders. I'm not sure this is actually true, but it felt like that to me. And so I couldn't read, and that is somewhat of a disadvantage. And but I was good in math, and believe it or not, up through 7th grade, the highest grade I ever got was a B in math. So I was not too enthusiastic about schooling, needless to say. But I've now forgotten the question.
Did that bother your parents about your schooling?
Oh, my father was absolutely wonderful. Being a fancy school, of course, instead of just grades, they gave you long written reports, and it was Julie needs to work harder and so forth. I also discovered one wonderful thing. I was kind of a jock. I liked to be outside. I didn't like to do homework, and I discovered that in the school, if you didn't do homework on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you had to stay Friday and do it all on Friday. I thought that's a great deal. That's what I did. And the thing is, the teachers don't like to stay till 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So I actually got away with not doing quite as much homework. But anyway, so I would come home with these long written reports, and my father would say, "What did you learn?" And he always asked, what did I learn? So it was clear to me that whatever these teachers were writing wasn't the critical thing. But the critical thing was, what was I learning? And so that's what he emphasized.
Right. Could you answer those questions easily for him? He could come home as a child and said, "What did you learn, honey?" That had to be a hard question to answer. In your keynote address, you discussed us continuing to try to move away from this idea of freedom, something that many behaviorists have talked about, and obviously your dad wrote about that as well. You also seem to indicate in your keynote address a distaste for punishment. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you think about the use of punishment?
Well, you need to review my address. Because essentially, I think that it has a lot of disadvantages. It can't build behavior. You can't build behavior with punishment. And what we're all into is building behavior. We're trying to create new repertoires. That's what education is, not squashing something. And you all know that if you build one behavior here, the person can't do that at the same time they're doing the other behavior that you want to squash. And particularly if it's an incompatible behavior, then you've gotten rid of it without using punishment. Our society is too much into punishment, and it's causing, I think, a lot of problems.
I think many of us are right there with you. I pulled a quote from your book, and I just love it because it articulates what you just said. You said it's necessary for us to use positive procedures to solve behavior problems, to improve student achievement in school, the use of reinforcement. Now you're under the gun because we're getting down to some important questions. We're going to leave a lot more time for you to get questions from our audience, because I'm sure they have many things they want to ask you. But I've got 10 tough questions for you.
Well, you can ask anything you want, but I don't promise I will answer.
It was